I'm Evan King, and I'm here to review 3 of the podcasts that I listened to for the podcast review assignment. So the first podcast that I reviewed was the podcast Lose Lose, which was this picture right here. This podcast talked about how the Olympics had no gold medals, no medals of any kind before a certain point in the Olympics, and how people that won the Olympics in the past, that they won paintings or tacky art or murals, or for instance, an American pole vaulter won an umbrella 1 year for their win at the Olympic Games. But then in 2012, the medals got introduced, or they started becoming more popular at the time, and Mike Pensa talks about the 2012 badminton games, that they were terrible, and that the women's badminton duo games were bad because of the call of the plays that were going on between the two teams of China and Korea. Both teams wanted to lose the waiting game, the scoring points. They had faults after faults for both sides, and the teams were hitting the badminton to the ground, and the crowd was still cheering for them. Meanwhile, China and Korea were competing to lose, and Korea was taking the score, and the crowd started to boo the teams after that. And when the head badminton coach caught on, he said that the teams both played stupid. 2 of the Korean women and 1 of the Chinese women were trying to lose the game on purpose for each of their teams. They were both surprised and embarrassed by what they did and what they continued to do all game. The black card was shown for both of the teams, which was the disqualification card, and the teams better have played a better game and more fair, and things had to get better. Both China and Korea teams were still trying to lose because they were still trying to play the worst team out of them. Korea was actually won in the end, but that meant that they were playing the easier team in the Dutch team, and one of the team members' parents asked what happened to the game on the Korean side, and the girl didn't know how to respond, and that's when they heard that both of the teams were disqualified and sent home from being eliminated from the Olympics, from how poorly of the job that both of the teams were doing and not wanting to win. All 4 women players went back to playing badminton on their own. One of the girls won a bronze medal at the Rio Games. People were upset, and the players said an oath for the teams to perform well and did not fail or play well, comparing the loss of other sports to the Olympics Games of badminton to U.S. football. The second podcast I reviewed was The Darkest Dark. This podcast talked about a person named Sonic Johnson, and his love for being out in the ocean and capturing photos of animals in the sea. He wanted to take pictures of the fish. Molly said that the fish were fighting like light and dark in the water, and the pictures were very hard to take because of how far Johnson had to go underwater, about 10,000 feet, to get these photos. Johnson said that the dragonfish are the fish of the predators of the deep, and they were long and skinny, and they lit up a very few lights on their bodies, making them easier to see and or harder to see underwater. The dragonfish teeth were long and they stuck themselves in the brains, which I thought that was very interesting. So Nick wanted to know how the fish were getting dark underneath the water. He began to see them like every 1 to 2 years, and he heard of Brooks birdwing, which had wings that were green that faded to black on the outer edges of the wing. And he heard of a grad student put them under a microscope and see a honeycomb array, and not of the void blackness color that he saw on the butterfly. The colors like green and blue were able to be seen, but you could cover them up with gold, and they came out looking a blackout nothingness color, as they put it, and only being able to see the physics of color. The skin of these fish were like mini Tic Tacs called melazone, like little structures that hold the melanin that made the fish from going dark, made them absorb light. The fish skin were crammed inside the melansome, and it was hard to figure out what pile of melansome was doing inside the fishes, and the answer was because of the moon. And different simulations of the fish black, of making the fish black as possible once the light got inside the melansome, saw that the more it got sucked up by the light. People wanted the light to go away. The animals in the ocean didn't want to get seen by the bioluminescent flashlight that that Johnson was shining on the water. And so many people ignored the fact that the color red was not being seen because of the blue and green hidden colors that were hidden amongst the red color. Also, blackness was not an emptiness. It seemed like an ultimate substance. And this podcast was by Molly Webster's. And the dragonfish, in fact, were not the fish that were having fangs that slid in the back of their skulls. That was fang-tooth fish. The last podcast that I reviewed was Up in Smoke. I heard of these two people, Letta, who was a scientist that studied wildfires in Idaho and Utah, and Naomi, who worked in the hospital in California. Both of them worked side by side to deal with the wildfires taking over, and this accumulated from the smoke traveling from California and later on from Canada. And Letta learned of how to build fires and controlling them and singing songs to celebrate fires making because she was from Ukraine before she moved from the U.S. Letta taught fire ecology class at Florida University. Letta observed the smoke and describing the bacteria of snow and wondering if that same snow bacteria was the same for the bacteria in smoke. And she learned that there was 10 times the amount of stuff in the smoke than regular ambient air. Letta said that there could be more live stuff in the bacteria of smoke that they haven't figured out yet. And the air temperature could be cooler, and the winds of the fire could light up from branches of the trees of the ongoing wildfires that were happening. Fires were giving organisms a way to stay away from the fires. Maybe a fire is a new kind of vector for dispersal. Letta said. Naomi talked about the burn size of the patients in her hospital in the impact of infection. And she wondered how these diseases can impact healthy people that are already not infected. And Letta said that she didn't know the smoke from Canada was going to make an impact on the people in the US to cause more infections. Looking at smoke, and she saw looking at smoke as being alive, and the fire just isn't affecting the ground itself, but also the way that we think about the perimeter of a fire. Letta said it is no longer just affecting the life within it, it's potentially transporting life across long distances, meaning across the country. And Letta's research was first defined as sticking petri dishes with her fire ecology class near the flaming front to see the effects of the smoke. Okay, that is my reviews for all 3 podcasts that I listened to. Hope you've enjoyed, and thank you for watching. Bye.